Welcome, listeners, to Out of Nightvale, where things are even more like they seem than they seem. Today we will be looking at episode 6 of Nightvale, The Drawbridge. The Drawbridge is an episode focused on attempts to reach Cecil from outside of Nightvale. We see Carlos's attempts to reach Cecil in the form of failed attempts to build a drawbridge in Nightvale. The engineers in Nightvale have tried using corrugated cardboard, non-dairy creamer, and ceramic bowls as the base supports of the drawbridge. It doesn't seem possible to build a bridge around Old Nightvale, and the engineers don't know how to start. Outside of Nightvale, Carlos is trying many techniques as he can in order to reach out to Cecil in Nightvale, but he doesn't have the base knowledge of Cecil's condition in order to build this bridge and bring Cecil back to the way he used to be, Old Nightvale. Equally concerned about Cecil's situation is Steve Carlsberg, who we are introduced to in this episode as being a real spoilsport. For more in-depth analysis of Steve, you should check out the video before this one. Steve, being naive to Cecil's condition and to psychology, suggests that a bridge or technique shouldn't be necessary, since Cecil has no body of water to cross. In other words, he is physically fine. This is why Cecil receives Steve's criticism in Nightvale and calls him a huge spoilsport, as Steve is basically saying that Carlos is wasting his time speaking to Cecil. Both of Cecil's caregivers out of Nightvale are worried that Cecil won't wake up soon enough, as the hospital is pressuring Steve and Carlos to agree to an experimental cure that neither one is confident in. More symptoms of this experiment will develop into the second year of Nightvale, when the hospital grows sick of taking care of an unresponsive patient. For now, however, we have seen the procedure brought up when the door to Radon Canyon was removed in episode 4. One of the techniques that Carlos must be trying to use to reach Cecil would be music therapy, or binaural beats, as Mayor Pamela Winchell insists that there is no soul-tearing sound coming from the dog park, which we know to be the outside world. Carlos could be trying to stimulate Cecil's perception of the world using sound, and Mayor Winchell, as part of the city council, would want to resist leaving Nightvale. This is why she so adamantly denies the sound obviously coming from the dog park. Our sponsor for this episode is simply moaning. Given that this comes directly before Cecil is offered to come huddle with us, we can take this as just his reaction to whatever caused him to be so down in his luck as to be offered help from the homeless. Unfortunately, it does not significantly extend the story back, but it does fit just before our last sponsor. On the subject of sponsorship, Cecil is vaguely aware during this episode of how much money is costing his family to keep him in the hospital. He mentions that after the recent failure of the drawbridge, the budget for the project was increased by $20 million over the next 14 years. He mentions that money for this project will come from school lunch programs, a hotel tax, and a bridge toll. This would translate to Abby needing to take money from Janice's school fund, taking another mortgage on their house, and Steve selling his tan Corolla, which we haven't heard about again after this episode. This shows how tough life would be for Abby, Steve, and Janice if it weren't for the donation of $45,000 by a foreign, nefarious organization. This organization turns out to be Cecil's last living relative, to whom he hasn't spoken in a long time and resents greatly. This donation comes from none other than Cecil's brother, Kevin, as I will explain in a character spotlight on Kevin later. But for now, it's enough to take note that Cecil is aware of these things going on around him, especially those involving the cost of his being in the hospital. This shows that Cecil, although slightly, is more aware of his surroundings than he was at the beginning of Nightvale. At the beginning, he was only paying attention to his immediate surroundings and the physical objects around him. Now he's beginning to take into account abstract concepts such as cost and money, and factor that into what he perceives in Nightvale. This shows that he is slowly getting better, and this is probably due to the help that Carlos is providing for him and all the different techniques that he is trying in order to reach Cecil in Nightvale. We will see that his growth does slowly get better over time, but for now, he still is unresponsive and does not make any sense. Alright, that's it for this episode. And as with any video on YouTube that you enjoy, please like and subscribe on this video, and comment down below if there's anything else you'd like me to cover, any way I can make the show better for you guys, or anything else you feel like talking to me about. And goodbye, listeners. Till next time.